This video will go over a study that has had swallow types acquired per the Chicago 4 protocol. In order to enable the Chicago 4 analysis and new features of ZView 3.4, click on the Properties icon, expand the Analysis section, and select Chicago 4 for analysis. Following a 60-second adaptation period, test swallows and 3 deep breaths were given to confirm that the probe transited the diaphragm. If supine swallows will be the primary position, then the supine resting measurement will be the first in this study. In the supine resting measurement, there's a new mark called the EGJCI mark. It does not give a value in the metrics until the mark is adjusted. So if no value is desired, just leave the mark unadjusted. There is no normal value yet for this metric, but it can be acquired and then compared between studies in a particular facility. The EGJCI mark, when adjusted, should span from the proximal LES to the distal diaphragm and across 3 respiratory cycles. Once adjusted, the EGJCI value will appear with no normal value. PIP can be adjusted as always. In the liquid swallow measurements, the marks are the same as in Chicago 3.0, with the exception of the addition of the inner bolus pressure mark. This mark is looking for inner bolus pressure that might be running from the EGJ to the contractile front and be a sign of bolus more slowly exiting the esophagus, causing pressurization. If pressurization above 20 millimeters of mercury is found, then a value will occur in the IBP section and will affect the inner bolus pressure pattern section. Here's a study as an example. With Chicago 3, compartmentalized pressure below the contractile front needed to exceed 30 millimeters of mercury, seen here surrounded by the black isocontour line. But in Chicago 4, compartmentalized pressurization only needs to exceed 20 millimeters of mercury, as seen here surrounded by the gray isocontour line. So both vertical bands of pressure represent compartmentalization. The distal latency is not marked on the front edge of the compartmentalized pressure, but is instead marked on the contractile front. Notice that in this area, the inner bolus pressure exceeds 20 millimeters of mercury and populated the inner bolus pressure pattern as compartmentalized. The feature for automatically populating the inner bolus pressure is included to help speed study review. But remember, the reviewer is always in control of any of the drop-down fields if they want to select anything other than what was auto-populated. In this swallow, there is no inner bolus pressure, so the value remains blank, and the IBPP, the inner bolus pressure pattern, is normal or indicates that there is none. Bolus transit is analyzed on liquid swallows as always. The same goes for the viscous swallows, where only bolus transit is analyzed. There have been several updates to the multi-rapid swallow section of the study. Chicago 4 recommended up to 3 sets of multi-rapid swallows if the peristaltic reserve is not adequately peristaltic and vigorous in the first or second set. The markings have been updated so that the distal latency, the peristaltic break, and the DCI all mark the final swallow as if the other 4 didn't occur. The inner bolus pressure mark has been added as well, and the IRP spans from first swallow to the end of the last swallow to look for EGJ relaxation. In addition to these marks, we have developed another mark that is unique to Diversitech Healthcare. This mark is called an I-DCI mark, standing for inhibitory DCI. Rather than dragging the DCI box to the area of swallow looking for inhibition, and a DCI less than 100, and then dragging the DCI back to the after contraction to look for adequate contractile vigor, we developed a second mark. The calculation occurs the same as for the DCI, but the value that it's looking for is different. So the iDCI, as well as the standard DCI, will be shown in the measurement metrics. The iDCI is unique to the multi-rapid measurements and the 200 ml rapid drink challenge measurement. The other thing that has changed is that it is no longer necessary to delete the multi-rapid sets that have the weaker DCIs. The new software will take the DCI from the measurement with the highest value for the multi-rapid ratio. If a second supine resting measurement was acquired, it will be edited similarly to the original supine resting measurement. If both measurements are kept, the LES p-value, the UES p-values, and the EGJCI values will average. Most choose to just keep the best of the two measurements. After all supine swallows have been acquired, the patient is moved to the upright position. An upright resting measurement is acquired, and this measurement is edited similarly to the supine restings. Upright swallow measurements are edited similarly to the supine liquid swallows. In the measurement metrics, note that the normal value threshold is different for the median IRP in the upright position than it is for the median IRP in the supine position. This is reflected not only in the metrics, but also in the report. In the 200 ml rapid drink challenge measurement, the markings are similar to those in the quicker multi-rapid drink sets that were discussed earlier. The measurement can be expanded to include any after contraction. The lack of an after contraction is not a bad thing, but the presence of a strong peristaltic after contraction can be a sign of normal motility. As with the multi-rapid swallow, the DCI, the distal latency, and the peristaltic break marks are all set on the after contraction if there is one. Though the IBPE mark may initially be placed by the latency, Chicago 4 is most concerned with whether there is panesophageal pressurization during the drink period in excess of 20 millimeters of mercury. To assess for panesophageal pressurization, grab the upper left corner of the IBP mark and extend it across the entire drink period and all the way up into the UES area. The IBP mark will overlay the iDCI box, which is fine. As in the multi-rapid measurement, the iDCI mark will look for pressure in excess of 100 millimeters of mercury during the drink period that may indicate altered contractile inhibition. The IRP mark should span from the start of the first swallow to the end of the swallow period or any after contraction. As with the rapid drink challenge, we do have an iDCI, inhibitory DCI, mark that is looking for complete inhibition. iDCI less than 100 during this measurement would be a normal finding. In the metric section, a few changes have been made. In the study metrics section, the median IRP has been moved to the top of the list with the normal value threshold. Normal value threshold has been removed from the measurement metrics section since it's really a median IRP threshold. Normal peristalsis has been replaced by effective peristalsis, which will tally how many of a particular swallow type by percentage had a normal DCI, a normal latency, and a normal peristaltic break all contained in the same swallow. The threshold for ineffective has been updated, and the mean DCI is calculated as the mean non-failed swallows in that particular swallow type. If more than one set of multi-rapid was obtained, then the cumulative data will be for all sets. What is different is the way the ratio is calculated. It will use only the best DCI compared to the mean non-failed DCI of the liquid swallows, and the threshold has been updated. In the upright swallows, there are now normal value thresholds available. In the study summary, the greatest changes occurred to the pattern classification. There may be a note at the top of the study summary section if not enough of the major swallow types were acquired. meaning primary and secondary. Primary is the first position, either supine or upright, in which 10 swallows are recommended. Secondary is the second position, upright or supine, and 5 or more swallows are recommended. If less than either one of those swallow groups were acquired, then a notice will appear in the study summary as well as on the report. The pattern classification has been updated for new criteria in the Chicago 4 publications, and there are many more possible categories. The major change was to EGJ outflow obstruction and also to ineffective esophageal motility. With this version of ZView, we'll allow for 2 criteria to be listed if criteria for both were met. With EGJ outflow, sometimes not all criteria were met, but a few were met, in which case the next criteria that was fully met will be listed, and then isolated EGJ outflow obstruction will be listed secondarily to give an indication that there may be still some suspicion of outflow obstruction, which may prompt further review with additional outside provocative tests. In addition to pattern classifications, we now have a pattern qualifier. The pattern qualifier refers to whether or not criteria were met in the manometry only. It does not take into account any other provocative tests they may have had. The pattern qualifier is either manometrically conclusive or manometrically inconclusive. As always, the reviewer remains in control of these fields and can adjust them if they do not agree with what ZView has populated. The report layout is quite similar to the earlier versions of ZView, with the addition of a note if there were not a satisfactory number of primary and secondary swallows acquired, then that notification will occur on the report. It will also occur in the section for which there were not enough swallows. So in this case, there were enough liquid swallows acquired, but not enough upright swallows acquired per the recommendation of Chicago 4. The notification is there so that interpretation might be adjusted appropriately. This concludes the analysis of Chicago 4 swallow types using ZView.